On 20 August 2024, tragedy struck Sicily. British billionaire Michael Lynch's yacht sank after colliding with a wave and a wind blow, and the businessman himself and his family members went missing. Only Lynch's wife, Angela Baccaris, managed to escape, who was able to rise to the surface of the water after windows were smashed all over the yacht and it began to sink. Also surviving was one of the boat's passengers and a family friend who also managed to save her 1-year-old child. Michael Lynch's daughter himself, as well as the crew members, were reported missing, and their bodies were never recovered. However, despite the fact that the wreck has been attributed to unfavorable sea conditions, many are convinced that Lynch was intended to be killed. All because a few days before, the businessman had won a court case in which he was accused of fraud and abuse of power. The proceedings lasted 12 years, but the British court ruled in favor of Lynch and his employees, in honor of which the man threw a party on a yacht. Suspiciously, a few days earlier, Stephen Chamberlain, who was also charged in the case, was hit by a car while jogging in Cambridgeshire. One of the versions that investigators are considering is that Michael Lynch was killed by rivals who benefited from his incarceration. They are also considering a version that Lynch himself decided to fly off the radar after realizing that he was being hunted by ill-wishers. However, the circumstances of the disappearance of Lynch and his close friends are still a mystery. And this is not the first time that influential businessmen and tycoons have disappeared under strange circumstances. We tell you about 6 more such cases. American multimillionaire Bob Harrod was 81 years old when he disappeared from his home under strange circumstances. A few months before his death, he met a woman he had broken up with 59 years earlier and unexpectedly proposed marriage. The wedding took place, and the new bride traveled to her home in Missouri to pack up the rest of her belongings and finally move to California to live with Bob. However, the happily ever after story was not destined to come true, as the man walked out of his Carnation Drive residence and went missing. Bob Harris was first discovered by his wife's son, who came to visit him and did not see him at home. This fact led police to believe that Harris's new wife and her son were accomplices, as no witnesses to the millionaire's whereabouts were found. However, since 2009, no conclusive evidence has emerged in favor of Harris's murder, and the investigation was closed for lack of evidence. South Korean billionaire Pak Mo was chairman of Vidente, a company that developed and manufactured broadcasting equipment. He was also the largest shareholder of South Korean crypto exchange BitHum. However, in 2021, Mo was accused of embezzlement and misappropriation of shares to himself, which led to the suspension of Park and his top managers. The businessman failed to win his trial, as he was found dead at the door of his home on 30 December 2022. But despite the fact that his death looked like a suicide, police tend to believe that Pak was assassinated. For starters, people rarely end their lives at the door of their own homes. More often than not, suicide bodies are found indoors. Alternatively, there could have been more powerful people behind Pak, who had encouraged him to embezzle the company's money and who feared that he would give it up in exchange for his freedom. However, the police have yet to find the culprits, so it is still believed that Pak took his own life. In May 2006, the Italian-born American millionaire told his family he was traveling to Toronto for a business meeting, but never returned home. Further investigation revealed that Jiwani was hiding his addiction to illegal substances from his family, and that he was not traveling for a business meeting, but to Fillmore's Hotel in Pembroke. The place was known for its easygoing ladies and access to anything illegal, and it was there that Jiwani was last seen. However, the theory that he was killed in the hotel was not confirmed. The police interviewed all the residents of the town and the employees of Fillmore's, and none of them noticed anything strange. But investigators had questions about Jiwani's wife, at least because she reported her husband missing only 4 days later, although he had promised to turn up at home the next day. Nevertheless, no evidence was found against the businessman's wife. Jewish-American industrialist Guma L. Aguiar was known as a charismatic and talented leader. Nevertheless, he also had enemies, who were suspected in the mysterious death or disappearance of the billionaire. The situation was as follows. In June 2012, the man went sailing in the Mediterranean Sea on his favorite yacht, Jupiter, in the company of friends. However, in the middle of the month, his yacht came ashore in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, without a single trace of wreckage. Moreover, Guma L. Aguiar's phone and wallet were found in the cabins. The police held two versions. Since the yacht did not face natural disasters and arrived safely, Guma was considered to have escaped of his own accord. Therefore, there is a possibility that the billionaire is hiding somewhere with his friends. However, investigators also believe that the businessman could have been killed by competitors because the entire yacht was suspiciously cleaned of fingerprints. But none of the assumptions has not yet been confirmed, and the investigation was closed. Millionaire Don Lewis fulfilled the so-called American dream. He moved to the States and opened a trucking company that made him one of the richest men in the country. However, in 1997, Lewis went missing without a trace or witness to his disappearance. Unlike other cases, Lewis's death was immediately blamed on his wife Carol, with whom he had a very strained relationship. The woman was known for her passion for buying exotic cats and had spent $92,000 of her husband's wallet on her hobby. When Don found out where his money was going, he decided to divorce Carol and sent her the papers from her lawyer. But he was not destined to stand trial, because after a month, the millionaire disappeared. Back when Carol and Don's marriage was at peace, the man signed a power of attorney, according to which, in case of his death or disappearance, all the money and business goes to his wife. And since no evidence was found against Carol, she received the entire Don's fortune and company at her disposal. As the mystery surrounding the Titanic wreck has not yet lifted, diving to the wreck has been a popular pastime for the super rich. Billionaires have been diving in the Titan bathyscaphe to the spot where the Titanic sank for several years, and these trips went off without a hitch until June 2023. Then the CEO of Ocean Gate, the company producing the bathyscaphe, Stockton Rush, in the company of 4 people, dived underwater, but after an hour, the connection with the ship was lost, and a few hours later it became clear that all participants sank. As the investigation showed, the passengers did not even have a chance to get out of the bathyscaphe, as the vessel was torn apart in an instant under strong water pressure. For the same reason, it is impossible to find the remains of the dead. Nevertheless, skeptics believe that it was not a death, but a deliberate disappearance, which was thought out by the ship's billionaire passengers. This is allegedly indicated by the fact that earlier voyages had gone according to plan, and that there were no clear indicators of turbulent ocean conditions that day.